Welcome to the Vendetta Effect.
Hello and welcome back to the Vendetta Effect, and let's start by introducing our players, starting this week with Rob.
Hey guys, I'm Rob and I play Spencer.
And Webby.
Hi guys, I'm Webby, I play Doc.
And Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily and I play Tabby.
And Devin.
Hi, I'm Devin. I play Mason.
Alrighty, so last time you guys Tabby and I'm having trouble with names. Spencer ended up going to France to meet with antiquities dealer about a set of papyrus along the way ended up finding a particularly interesting extra document that discussed golems, and Zed introduced a taser to Doc, or at least a kind of taser, I would say.
Don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me.
Nice. So later that day, while you are back from France, I would like you, Spencer, to give me a clever roll, please.
Okie dokie. I have a 2.
Ooh, okay. So it wasn't the cleverest of clevers. So as you're reading this document, you will find that the farther in you get, the murkier it gets away from biblical discussions. And a lot of it seems to surround a few specific characters, one of whom is noted effectively is called the Zamtari. And they seem to be some kind of creature which has... they're kind of chaotic in nature, and yet they look like humans and are sentient, but appear to be, well, devilish in behavior and are not considered trustworthy. And the other name that sticks out is something called a Guringal, which is some sort of beings which are on the other side of the gate. And that part you got quite clearly. And they seem to be interacting with people on this side of the gate who then cause havoc and chaos throughout the world.
Interesting.
On the other side of the line is someone called the Autumn Folk. And these people seem to be warrior angels who fight the Guringal. And none of this sounds biblical to you.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, certainly
sounds
doesn't.
more Lords of the
you've read.
If that's out by now.
What's that? Sounds
So
like
it sounds more
Rings.
Lord of the Ringish if that's been out yet.
Well, yeah,
yeah,
Lord of the Rings is
yeah.
out. Yep.
So into that. It's great. Tabby's favorite.
Actually, that is a good question. I mean, The Hobbit's been out for ages at this point.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, when was that released?
What,
Not
1955 right now, right?
Yes. Okay, so Lord of the Rings was written in 1949,
Oh.
and the work was Lord of the Rings was published in 3 volumes over the course of a year, July 29th, 1954 to October 1955.
Wow.
So Fellowship is out, maybe Two Towers, but not Return of the King yet.
Oh, I am so excited. Can't believe
Yeah.
it.
We the best.
What's
The
that?
Hobbit was written in 1937.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Well, Hobbit was written to be. It was sort of a story he was telling his kids,
Right.
Mhm.
and then he got into huge details with Lord of the Rings because he wrote the Silmarillion and all that stuff, all the background stuff.
Silmarillion.
So-
yeah.
Yeah. So, and without getting into the weeds. So, yeah, the first book was published July 29th, 54. Next book, November 11th, 54. And then the last one was the 20th of
weird
October.
to remember that the Lord of the Rings had to be had to be published because it just feels like it's eternal, like
Yeah, well,
oh.
it's yeah. I mean, for people like us who are into this stuff, it's kind of like it's almost like a scriptural tome. Like it's been around thousands of years, and the way it talks is very scriptural as well. So
yeah, so it
sort of
feels
fits
like
that.
it should have been there forever, and it's not. It's
Mhm.
like what 70 years old,
hmm
80 years,
Yeah,
a
but I mean,
long
at the same time, yeah, it's still at the same time, it's partially because and now we're getting into stuff we shouldn't be talking about in this podcast, but effectively, it's partially because he is an Old English professor who
Yeah.
has studied the tales from Old English, and that influenced a lot of his writings. So, yeah. Anyway, without getting too far into that, yes,
It feels older than it is.
exactly. So anyway, those were released around that point of time. So there is
Wow.
some of that going on.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So there you go. You're actually it's like hot off the press as far as Tabby's concerned. It's the new bestseller. Probably not. Actually, I have no idea. So anyway,
So all that went into yes, that would be an apt comparison for Spencer to make. That it's like Lord of the Rings.
yep.
It's finally appropriate on the show for him to
Make that comparison. Yes, exactly.
Mm.
Ugh. Okay. So it gives off that kind of feel anyway, as far as the story seems to be very different from what you would expect it to be, basically, which is normal. But the other thing you notice is that within the papyrus you've been given, there is a couple of other books that, while are a little bit more mundane, definitely talk about the idea and concept of God that doesn't match up with what current Christian beliefs are. Talking about God instead of being a physical being who came to earth, but rather that there's a separation between Christ and Jesus, that they're not the same person, effectively, and that Christ is this spirit who kind of influences Jesus and isn't necessarily in the world. So there's all sorts of different things like that, and they're all under different gospel names. But you can tell it's not what we consider to be the North Orthodoxy.
Okay.
And there's a lot of talk about knowledge and hidden knowledge within it.
All right. Well, I will take what I know and give it to the big boss.
Okay.
Big boss, you say?
The big boss. It's Mr. Bradford. Bradford, when you come in, he takes all that information in that you've told him. He then says, well, I've been scratching my head on this issue today, and I reached out to a couple of contacts that I know in Egypt. And one of them has told me that there may be something into this. He's one of our, I wouldn't say agents. That'd be the wrong terminology, but he's definitely an important part of our group. And you may want to take the others and get in contact with him, because he might be able to point the way to this thing. Because if what he's telling me is true, he says he has a discovery that they've made near Memphis which may have bearings on this issue. Because some of the hieroglyphics talk about a portal and a gate, and about someone who visited them who had super speed.
Interesting.
Wait,
Like-
what? Like the Flash from the comics?
Yeah, exactly. And he says, and there's depictions of people who don't fit the normal Egyptian mold, shall we say, on a couple of the walls.
All right, sounds very interesting. And you think maybe this could point us to wherever this gate is as well?
It may, well, I mean, if what these hieroglyphics are saying is accurate, yes. The reason why I say that is because they also found Semitic writings not far, which again refer to Sheol.
That's interesting. Well, I'll be getting on a plane then.
Take the others.
Do I have to?
Yeah.
Fine.
I don't trust what's going on down there right now. And you never know what the British are going to do. So you're probably best to get to meet this guy with some level of protection just in case things have gone south. Ever since the revolution, things have been iffy, shall we say, with the Western powers and Egypt. And he writes a name down on a sheet of paper and hands it to you. And the name is Pahor Labib. And he says he's the head of the Coptic Christian Museum in Cairo. And he's the one to talk to.
All right, I will get the others and we'll be on our way.
Excellent. And if you need anything, talk to Zed, as always.
Will do, boss.
He nods.
So yeah. So I would probably grab Tabby first since I walked past her desk and that would be rude otherwise. Tabby, pack your things. We're going to Egypt.
Oh, exciting! My cat is trying to steal my dinner from me. 1 second, I gotta get away.
Fun
Spencer
fact,
looks around for a cat.
Egyptians loved cats.
Spencer's looking around for a cat like, well, all right, I'm just going to move on, Tabby. I'll see you later. So then he'll just go this way into Doc's room.
The second you walk in, Doc is whistling to Leroy Holmes.
And as you're doing that, your assistant is back after a little bit of medical procedures. He is a little worse for wear, but he doesn't look too bad by the time Spencer shows up. But every once in a while, he kind of twitches.
I can't believe you've done permanent neurological damage to your assistant, you and Zed.
Doc, what you whistling?
Doc will immediately stop the record and stop whistling, and then just turn around in his chair and stare at Spencer.
Spencer's going to reach into his coat pocket, take out a notepad, and raise one eyebrow at Doc and start writing. It's only fair.
Spencer, I think you and I should go visit Zed.
Well, I was planning to after this. We've got a mission. We're going
Good.
to Egypt.
I'll meet you. Doc visibly groans. Fine, I'll meet you at Zed's.
Right.
He leaves.
So then I'll go down to Mason's office. He'll knock on Mason's door. He doesn't knock it. He doesn't knock it, Doc. He just walks right in. Knock, knock, knock. Mason?
Yes.
We've got a mission. If you'd could come with me, we're going to Egypt. So wear something light.
Noted.
I guess we're going to meet at Zed's and get equipped. If you want to meet us there.
Okay. Sounds good. I mean, there's not much to say to that.
True.
Not
He's
really,
not
no.
bothering to tell you you're going to look at hieroglyphics. You all complain endlessly.
So, John, as soon as Spencer walks in the room, I convinced Zed to let me try his little stick thing again.
Oh, God.
But I'm going to turn it down to the lowest setting.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as Spencer walks in, I'm zapping him with it.
Roll a flashy, please.
Another one.
Spencer, you need to roll a defense.
I will also roll a flashy to block it with my cane. Smack it out of your hand.
And he does. You go to fire. Spencer obviously is untrusting, shall we say. And it triggers and hits the wall and sets off sparks against a nail that was stuck in the wall. And then kind of goes and then dies. Ah!
I just throw it on the ground. Like,
No!
this is junk.
That just kind of
junk.
fall to his knees in front of it. It's so expensive. You're breaking it.
Spencer glares at you and says, "You're filling out the paperwork for that one, Doc."
Indeed.
I don't think so. I don't fill out paperwork. Actually, I enjoy filling out paperwork.
That's good, Doc. You'll be filling it out all week if I have anything to say about it. Now, why are you here? Other
Right.
than
What kind of form was that needs to be filled out again, Zed?
a 10.5B/14/F/6
Sure.
triplicate.
He grabs that file that form out of
Uh-huh.
some cabinet and just kind of shoves it in Spencer's pocket. Here for later.
Did you make Tabby fill out a form 44B for going on a mission without you?
Oh, that is correct. I need to do that. I have that written down even.
He hands you back the file and says, "Here, add this one to it for."
Good. I grab both of them and I go and find Tabby.
Oh, fantastic. I'm just at my desk,
I put down 2 forms in front of you. These need to be filled out before we leave for Egypt. You're welcome.
Why?
I walk away.
No. I grab him by the shirt and say, "Why?" Like the hem of his jacket.
I point at one. It's like, this is the one for going on a mission without us, and this is one for breaking one of Zed's new inventions. Thank you. And I smack her hand away and I walk away.
I toss one of them into the garbage and then I fill out the other. Because I didn't break anything. So I throw away the one that,
The
It's
very
for
long
Zed.
one.
the very, very long one. And then I fill out the
All right.
other one.
All right, that's fine.
Because now Doc thinks he's off the hook, so he doesn't care.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, he can just point the finger at you and say, "You should have filled it out. She broke it." Apparently.
Apparently.
okay.
I did it. I always do.
Well, I mean, it's the 50s.
John,
My hashtag for everything. It's the 50s. Yes.
when I get back into Zed's room,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to walk up to Spencer and kind of make small talk. Like, I don't think she's very happy about 2 forms. I'm fairly certain I heard her crumple up one of them, blah, blah, blah. So that's small talk. Can I roll a careful check to try to pickpocket the notebook off of Spencer to see if he actually wrote anything about me?
Okay, you can try for sure.
Okay.
I can't say you'll succeed, but you can try. Clever roll, please, Spencer.
Okay.
God.
No, you did not.
So he notices you trying this, and he hands you the pad, and there's a page torn off. And you see that Zed has that page.
Zed just looking at the paper and says, huh? I never knew that, and tucks it away.
I slowly hand the pad back to Spencer, and I eyeball both of them, and I say, one of these days, both of you will be on my table. Remember this. And I walk out.
What a creepy man.
Yep. If there's one thing Doc is good at, is being creepy. Zed looks over at Spencer and says, is there anything needed, sir?
No. I should be
Good.
alright. All my equipment's good. I didn't have to use anything last time. I don't know if any of the others need stuff. You may want to keep an eye on Ivan. Seems to be twitching an awful lot.
Yes, I know nothing about that.
He looks at him suspiciously. Right.
Zed goes just flat-faced, like as if like not a word. And he is busy picking up his pieces of equipment and setting them on the table to start working on them again. And just ignores you at that point.
All right. Spencer's going to leave by this way into Doc's thing, and he's going to try and sneak in there without Doc noticing.
Lord.
2.
Okay. Careful or clever there, Doc?
Fantastic.
No. Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
wow.
The second he walks through that door,
Uh-huh.
Doc immediately busts through this door and stares at him.
He's just going to slowly back out that door.
Just the penguins of Madagascar thing. You didn't see anything.
Yeah, and as he walks past Zed just kind of sniffs as he goes past. Got caught, did we?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. And that's all he says. He just, mm-hmm.
Oh dear. You can't
Wanted
leave
to
these
see if
boys
he was
alone
listening.
for 1 minute, you know?
What's that, Spencer?
I wanted to see if he was listening to that song again.
Look, I don't enter into your affairs any more than I need to. Please don't come into my room to bother Doc.
I make no guarantee.
Zed sighs at that. And he says, just get out. Get out.
Hey, he tried to zap me with one of your inventions.
Look, if you don't leave right now, I'm going to flamethrower I built the other day and practice that on you.
You mean the one you let me use even though it could have burned me to death?
I have made adjustments.
Fine, I'm going.
You just hear muttering as you Uh-huh. So, as he has acquired his Pokemon, it is time for you guys to leave. Or gather together in Bradford's office. So either way, it's all good. So Bradford has a couple of files which he hands one to Doc.
Why is the European bureau chief in?
My
Did we
goodness.
just, did we just burst into like a middle of?
Fine.
I mean,
Bradford, give us
they
your
wouldn't be
attention.
surprised, to be fair, but yeah. The pardon me. The Bradford's standing there. He's got a couple of files. He tosses one at Doc, sticks the other one in on the edge of his desk towards Mason, and says, "This is kind of what you're looking for when you're there." And he says, "There's a temple entrance in Memphis which they discovered just a couple of years ago, but they haven't really explored it thoroughly yet. With all the problems that they've been having with the government, there hasn't been an opportunity quite yet. But what they found so far has been startling, to say the least. So if you go there and meet with this gentleman, he should be able to point the way. Make sure you find out what you can about this, because whatever this is, if there's any legitimacy to it, we need to know that.
Wait, we're going to Memphis?
Not Tennessee.
Doc visibly looks slightly upset at that. Like let down, like he was looking forward to Memphis, Tennessee.
Maybe you should have not told him until you got to Egypt, and then be like, "Yeah, we're going to Memphis, Egypt." And then you're like, "No." Why is there so
Spencer
much
takes out his notebook again, jots something down.
Jeez.
And
I hope
while
you're
he's looking at
correct.
Doc, he rips it off and hands it to Tabby.
I just have this image of Doc Smells is on there. And yeah, so there we are. He says, be careful, though. The current government is not Western positive, shall we say. Nasser's a bit of a thug. So, your passports, tickets in the file folders. Take whatever equipment you need and get out of here. Kind of wondering why you're all standing around.
You don't have to tell me third time.
Okay, Tex. All right, so you guys leave. And again, board planes. Eventually, you reach Rome, where you're put in touch with a couple of contacts there. They then put you on a ship heading to Cairo. Unless there's anything anybody wants to do, we can move on to Cairo.
No, other than like a sort of fancy sort of shenanigans.
A fancy what? Sorry.
Shenanigans, like, oh dear. The word where they speed things up to show a whole bunch of stuff happen in a short amount of time with a music track.
Montage?
Montage, yeah. If shenanigans montage of them in Italy, like that'd be great. But let's cut past that. I'm sorry.
Shenanigans montage.
No.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
People running in super quick motion around. Somehow there's a lady with no clothes on being chased by M through the streets, and
No, never. How could you?
you didn't watch enough Benny Hill then, apparently.
No, I
Anyway,
didn't.
yeah, that's kind of old timey 70s stuff. But anyway, alrighty. So after the shenanigans, you arrive in Cairo. You guys reach Cairo. When you reach Cairo, there's an agent there named Claremont who meets you at the docks. And he says, so I understand you're supposed to be meeting with this museum director. Can I escort you to him?
Yes, you can.
He says, ma'am, make sure you have your head covered. They are dangerous around here. And
Okay.
and he looks at the rest of you and says, are you aware of the details of the current uprising that's been going on?
We could probably use a
No.
refresher.
Yeah, probably. Nobody told us ever.
It was in the news after all.
Well, I don't watch the news.
Watch the news?
Listen to the news, I mean. Read it.
I mean, I guess there's more TVs in America than around here, so there you go. But he looks at you all and says, well, the local monarch was overthrown by Nasser back in 52. and he's been dealing with some Islamic extremists recently and has cracked down on them, to say the least.
I feel like this is actually a cleverly disguised history podcast that John has put together.
It's not supposed to be, but there's some aspects of history in
every
That
podcast.
is-
John
That's
puts
not every
together.
podcast.
Yes.
That is very much is every podcast John puts together.
Fate of Heroes. Fate of Heroes was a little of that this year. I'll grant you.
Hashtag
So-
Wells History Podcast.
I mean, it is on brand.
It is on brand. So he basically says, basically it's dangerous to be out on your own, and some of these rumors say that he's working with the commies.
Oh no, those filthy communists.
And he nods as if you said that for real. And then and he looks at you all and says, the other problem, of course, being their ongoing wars with the Israelites. They're dangerous, effectively. So just be careful is all my advice. And he then nods you to a cab and says, we'll go this way. It's probably the safest way to get there. And put you guys into a cab. Then he pays his driver and tells him in Arabic to take you to the museum. As you arrive at the museum, there is a gentleman who is, he probably looks like he might be in his 50s, working there. He is surrounded by assistants of various ages, and they are looking at a bunch of documents at this point in time. And they have kind of the run of the place. There isn't anybody else there at the moment, but just this dude, basically, with his assistants. And it's still early enough in the day. There isn't like the tourist hordes that sometimes can get at these places. Pardon me. And he has a receding hairline, dark colored, like black hair, large glasses, and is wearing a suit and is wearing some white gloves and paging through various documents when you come in. And he looks up and says, "Hello, can I help you?"
Hello. We're looking for the curator of the museum.
That would be me.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yes, and you are, sir?
My name is Spencer. Spencer Harris. You should have been expecting me.
Ah, you're the Americans.
Yes. Well, they are. I'm Australian, but yes.
Indeed, indeed. Okay. He smiles and he says, "Pahor Labin. My advisors have mentioned that you were going to be coming. We have a site in southern Egypt. I have been told there's some interesting finds there that maybe have some relationship to what you're currently researching. At least that's what I've been led to believe."
That's what I've been told as well. Something
And,
about a man that could run as fast as lightning and other such interesting things.
Indeed, indeed. A very, very strange and comic book-like description would be the word I would use. But aside from that, there is also this mention of a gate and a portal would be my translation of it. But certainly, if you've seen the texts, they're unusual because most of the rest are just simply Christian documents. But these mention such strange examples. They're not really Gnostic in the way they would be described, like these other documents are. And he starts, basically blurting on about it for a while. and eventually looks up at you and says, nonetheless, I should probably take you all down to Memphis. And maybe we can try and figure out what's going on. If you can advise and help me with that, I would be very appreciative. Because with everything that's gone on here in the last couple of years, it's been a little iffy with our archaeological research. But certainly there's some very strange things related to this development.
Well, that's what we're here for. Lead the way.
He nods and says, thank you, I appreciate it. And he whistles to one of his assistants and speaks to them in Arabic. Does anybody speak Arabic amongst you bunch?
Not me.
I do not.
No.
Okay, so you don't understand a word he's saying. And eventually the other guy leaves. And he says, I've called for a small plane to get us to the site. It should be here shortly. Well, not here, obviously, but at the airport. So if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Do you have anything interesting here in the museum?
We have plenty of things here. I mean, it's mostly early Christian in origin, but there are some things from the old Greek settlements and certainly some of the ancient Egyptian settlements as well. And he kind of takes you through a few of them and shows you some of the discoveries. Of course, it's not like the British Museum. We don't have the Rosetta Stone or any of that, but certainly it's filled with fascinating pieces, as you can imagine.
Indeed.
And
I'm sure he's actually really interested in all of it. I'm sure the others are just like, oh my god, can we get on the plane?
yeah, exactly. And he talks you through a bunch of stuff about sort of kind of the discoveries they've made in the last few years, and talks a little bit about how they're changing kind of the understanding that they have for kind of how the ancient Christianity and ancient Hebrew documents have kind of changed the perceptions of the Bible and all of that kind of thing, and kind of put into concerns, I guess, that the documents we have are not the oldest ones, or maybe only a part of the argument, basically, and that kind of thing. And then he kind of talks a little bit about some of the Islamic stuff that they have. And eventually, the same person he talked to before comes in and looks over at you all and says, the airplane is ready. It isn't a very long flight, but I just wanted to make sure we were in and out before there was trouble. Plus, the military will want to keep an eye on everything. So if you're all ready to go.
Of course.
Yep.
Ready.
He nods and says, excellent. This will be a very intriguing dig, I think. And he says, I'm sure you all might find it fascinating as well. Because, of course, he's completely oblivious to those that wouldn't have found it fascinating. He basically ignores that idea. So he takes you out to the airport. You guys get on the plane, and you end up landing somewhere south of Cairo, at which point there's a couple of sort of all-terrain Jeep vehicles there. And you load up into those, and as you're loading up, he hands you guys all scarves and things and says, you want to cover your mouth because dust and sand can get everywhere. And basically you guys drive out there. As you go out to the site, you'll see that it was a massive mound of sand covered this building. It looks like an ancient temple, or possibly an ancient administrative building. It's hard to say. There are pillars everywhere and all of that, and some of them have been knocked down. There's statues, and some of which have been defaced, some of which are still intact completely, made of sandstone, some of which are made of what looks like onyx stone. So they're all black, and there are some sarcophagi that have been brought out and displayed, and some of the mummies have been removed, and the entrance to the structure appears to be intact, and there's a set of stairs going up, and there's a giant hole in the middle of it. And he nods at you all and says, careful as you walk up there. It is, it can be a little tricky, but otherwise it's fairly simple. And boop. And boop. Okay. So he walks you into this building. As you walk in, you can see that they've set up some portable lighting around it. And specifically on the one wall, there is a massive hieroglyphic mural with tons of different designs on it. Doc, I'd like you to roll me a clever roll, please. And I would also... Actually, I'd like you all to roll clever rolls. That might actually be a good idea at this point.
And if I refuse?
That's okay. So did Doc.
It's always
Wow.
nice when you roll and you accidentally think that the person who rolled after you, who got the high number, is you.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so based on that, Mason and Doc look around, don't really, they can't make heads or tails. It's just, drawings. Some of them are interesting and fascinating. There's drawings of crocodiles, some of which look like people are being fed to them. Other ones look like they're feeding them. It's hard to say exactly because it's, sort of abstract. But Spencer, as you look on the wall, actually, Tabby, when you look on one of the walls, you see what looks to be, you'd swear it looks like somebody's drawn like a cat, but not like an Egyptian hieroglyphic cat. It looks like if you opened up a coloring book of a little kid kind of cat
Aw. Okay.
on the base of one of the pillars.
That's some funny little graffiti.
And you see leading up to it what looks like footprints stuck to the ground, which look like paw prints. Spencer, when you look up on the big mural, you can see that down in one corner there is a drawing which includes someone who's moving at fast speed, and the way they've done it is they've taken the same person and he is just repeated over and over, moving among a various bunch of people until he stops in front of a woman who has hands which seem to be holding a glowing orb.
Very interesting.
And beside him is another woman who is obviously holding some sort of child in her arms. And she has either a head covering, which is multiply colored, or her hair is multiply colored.
So I'm going to look at the museum curator. This is very odd. I mean, they wouldn't have had colors like this for clothing back then.
No, I would gather not. Nor would you have this repeated hieroglyphic of a human being moving at this kind of speed. I'm gathering what they're trying to say is that this person is moving very quickly. And yet it doesn't make any sense. Like I said, it looks like something out of a comic book. That isn't even the weirdest part of this whole discussion, to be honest with you.
He raises his eyebrows. There's something that's even stranger.
Yes. And he walks towards the other room, and he says, "Come with me, I'll show you." and he takes you up to a sarcophagus, which has been busted, and it looks like it had been smashed with something. And he says, that was done before we actually opened this building. We're not sure why there's sarcophagus even in here, as this is obviously a temple. So typically you don't bury your dead here. This is more a place of worship or a place of meeting. But what we are finding as we look through this is if you look at the hieroglyphics on the side, and he points, and there's just rows after rows of hieroglyphics, and he says it mentions the name Shul, and that is very much not. And it's written specifically in the Egyptian.
That's weird. It's very not Egyptian.
Well, and that's what he said. Indeed, he says that's the weird and strange. It's been done in a way so that you can. It's phonetic, for lack of a better word. It's like they don't know how to say the words or write the word, so they've written it as how it sounded to their ear. So it's Shoal in Egyptian, but it is most definitely the same gate mentioned again.
Now, does the sarcophagus look like it's been smashed inward or smashed outward, as if something was coming out of it?
Inward would
Okay.
be. I mean, it's pretty
Oh,
obvious.
you never know.
'Cause- yeah, no, I get you, but it's pretty obvious that something hit the top of it,
Mhm.
because there's cracks that start from it but don't go that deep. So it wouldn't look like somebody broke out. It would look definitely more like somebody broke in.
Yeah.
And he says, treasure hunters, of course, have hidden. Egypt is an ancient country even at the time of the Romans, so treasure hunting may have gone on here many, many times in the past. But nonetheless, the identities of these two people, it's hard to miss. And he says, this boy, for example, that is in that painting, it's my understanding that he, from later hieroglyphics, that he may have been a prince or even the pharaoh himself.
Interesting. You mean the child that the multicolored headed person is holding?
Yes.
Interesting.
It's all speculation at some degree, but so he's showed the hieroglyphics to you guys, including a hieroglyphic of a woman holding a child. The child has markings to say it is of royal birth, and that these sarcophagus mention a pharaoh, and that these ancient priests were buried here in mark of the loss of a priestess that used to be here. So he looks at you all and says, we have no idea who they're talking about. We only know that there's... It could be a Peta or Pekra or something along that line. We just don't know. But we've only really been able to break into this part of the temple in the last, I'd say, 2 months. So we haven't really had time to sit down and work through it. And he...
Have you seen anything else that doesn't fit in what the hieroglyphics are showing?
And he says, yes, that's the other thing. And he says, if we walk up here at the stand for the basin, and he takes you kind of up the steps above the dais. I'll show you in a sec. Kind of there. And he says, if you look up towards the entrance, from here, you can see that there is a glowing kind of appearance, for lack of a better word. It looks like at one point that there was gold that was wrapped around the entrance, as if to say a barrier or a portal or possibly a gate could have been represented. And he says there is also this. And he picks up a scroll and lays it out on one of the side things, and he says, if you look here, the scroll identifies Sheol as being found in the deserts where Moses once was. Now, we know for a fact that this scroll is later placed here. It is not originating from here. It is something we found which was dated closer to the Greek period. But nonetheless, the idea that it would be mentioned even then is startling, to say the least.
And where was the scroll? Was just in the tomb when you uncovered it?
Yes, it was tucked in with one of the you see this broken one.
Mhm.
It was tucked in with it, with the mummy. But it was placed there after the fact. The mummy was probably buried 1,000 years before this scroll.
That's very
It's
strange.
extremely peculiar.
Indeed. Thus the reason why I've called you. Your experience with dealing with peculiar things may help. Certainly there is mythology about gates and portals and strange things showing up with strange things coming out. Certainly we've always taken that as being legendary in fashion, such as Ezekiel and what he saw in vision of a wheel within a wheel and that kind of idea. You know, the old biblical stories, or even if you go to Muhammad and his discussion of how he got the book, there is this sense that people are coming from an other world. And of course, even in Christian dogma, there is evidences of things like the hell and the demons and how they come to our world to entice and deceive us. Or, in other cases, the angels. So it's something within our understanding.
Most faiths in the world have sort of a after some other world, sort of a big part of religion. If only what was here existed, then, you know.
Indeed, but typically the idea of a light versus dark doesn't really enter the Hebrew religion until after the Babylonian conquest. So the understanding of that being entering into a point where it's in Christian doctrine and in Hebrew doctrine seems to be of a more Babylonian aspect rather than an Egyptian one. But yet here, this is basically talking about the light and the dark in a way that is very reminiscent of that.
As opposed to sort of the more Egyptian order versus chaos kind of thing.
Correct. I mean, certainly there is some mention of those things, but this Gurungal that's mentioned in some of the documents that I've seen appears to be something quite different.
That is unusual.
Thanks
for calling us.
He smiles and says, well, again, my understanding is you have dealings with a lot of very peculiar issues in past.
And that would be correct.
And he smiles and says, well, this is certainly beyond anything I've dealt with. If there's anything else you need, or you're certainly welcome to have a look around. Most of the artifacts have been removed, but there's nothing else on them that I could tell specifically would match any of this, although there has been some drawings unearthed on a couple of statues, but we feel like that's more graffiti than actual problematic out of time segmentation or something along that line, or some strange explanation for certain things. I mean, at the end of the day, that drawing on the far side may just simply be some sort of interpretation of gods, but it's something we've never seen before.
Yeah. Could you describe the drawing on the far side again?
Basically what you see is It is a man who's moving. The image is basically like showing him moving at very fast speed, but it's just him repeatedly moving across the scene, because there's a scene with different people, and you can tell the people are different based on different aspects of them. And typically in some of the Egyptian drawings, especially later, they'd actually put glyphs above their heads that kind of symbolize who they are. But in this case, this guy's not wearing a pharaoh outfit. He's not wearing priestly robes. He's wearing very simple looking tunic, and
he's just a guy, you know?
Just a guy, you know. And the woman who he then seems to appear in front of is holding an orb of light in her hands and seems to be showing as if she's brightly lit, in lack of a better phrase. And then the other woman is standing there, has colored hair, colored cloth on her head. It's not distinct enough to know which it is. She is holding a small child who is adorned as if he is either a prince or the pharaoh himself.
Okay, that's very strange. Yeah, that is okay. As soon as you got to that point, I was like, "Oh, I remember." But yeah, I don't know.
Is there anyone of Asian depicted in?
He looks at you and says, "No, not." But it's harder to tell with those kind of things, simply because race wasn't the same kind of issue as it is. So in the ancient texts, we have no concept basically of how the Egyptians appeared. We only have what they drew. And so there's no sure way to say definitely that they were black, or if they were Caucasian, or if they were Middle Eastern looking people. We can only guess based on some of other descriptions that we've received over the years through other writers in the way that they've talked about them.
Right. So the tablet we got from the Korean Museum, the one that talked about a group of people, did it mention a guy that could move fast? I don't remember what it said.
No, it did not. It mentioned that what the one document you had about people who came through a ring, a portal ring, basically, and that they caused trouble at a wedding.
I made a Stargate joke at that, didn't I?
You did, yes.
Okay.
This is different. This is not something you've experienced before.
Okay.
But then you haven't had images. This has been all just writing. This is like the first image you've ever seen, even if it's sort of an abstract image.
Yeah. Is there anything else at the site besides this unusual image?
Well, you have so you have that image. You have the cat image. There's the writing of some priestess that was honored, and you have what looks to be a discussion about a gate that appears in the Sinai near where Moses was.
Okay.
In an Egyptian document.
Yeah.
Written in Greek, by the way, not in Egyptian.
Oh my. Okay. That is very strange.
Abby, I don't know why I said Abby. Tabby, can you take pictures of all of this, especially the people there and the cat?
Of course. Absolutely. I pull out my handy dandy trusty old cameras. And I start setting up for some shots. Should I roll to determine if I get really good photos, or?
You certainly can.
Awesome.
You can do a careful or a clever, whichever one you wanted.
Okay, clever. 2.
Well, not bad. They're good enough.
They're good enough.
They're black and white. You can only get so good.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do all that.
I take some notes of what the different colors of things are, so I can write that down and say later and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And the curator also says to you, Spencer, he says, the only thing I can advise you is that we know that there is at least legendary locations for Moses. And there was a monastery which was built not far away from one of his so-called places of worship. So that might be a good place to start. Certainly we found older records there.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we should go to, like, the place that they mentioned that had the gate.
Well, I mean, they mentioned the Sinai, which is a very large area, but yeah, if we have this monastery to go to, I would guess that would be the place to stop.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, so you guys get ready to do that. And while you do, we'll have to find out what happens next week.
Oh, exciting.
With that, Em, where can we find you online?
You guys can find me as Orange Father or Father Orange anywhere on the internet. I still haven't looked it up to make sure it's which.
And Devin.
You guys can find me on Twitter at DMP_Pookie and at Twitch at PooKilledMe.
And Rob.
You can find me on Twitter at Confessor_X and on Twitch at ProfessorX.
And Webby.
Hey, you guys can follow me on Twitter at JaxForestWalker, all one word.
And you can find me at LinsteadDM on Twitter. You can find everything we do at distractionsmedia.com. And of course, you can always find Fate of Heroes at facebook.com/Fate of Heroes. So be sure to come hang around and tell us how we're doing. Anyway, until next time, everyone, take care. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
This has been a Distractions Media production. For more info, you can check out everything we do on distractionsmedia.com.
Did you know that Distractions has its own Twitch channel? You can actually find everything that we're doing and all of our various streamers at twitch.tv/distractionsmedia. Check us out, won't you?